Hello, I'm Charles Coves, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of The Charles Coves Show, episode 135. Whether you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or listening via podcast. In this week's episode, the last for 2022, I consider the empowering message of Christmas. Choose love ahead of fear in the way that you live your life. I say governments love to have power over you. Governments love to control you. And they do this by promoting fear. But if you embrace the Christmas message of love, you will not live a life of fear. You will not be swayed by government fear-mongering. In this show, I explore 8 ways that governments are deliberately choosing to make you fearful, to make you full of fear. I urge you to reject these fears, to do your own thinking, and to embrace the amazing capacities of your human spirit, your soul, the source of your loving responses to our human challenges. When you hear the word Christmas, I encourage you to think love, empowerment, truth, and freedom. I hope you enjoy the show. Our format for the show is that I share today's big idea. I share 6 resources to help you implement the big idea. I have a short review of crucial elements of life that have occurred to Julie and me and the world and Australia and wherever my fancy takes me. And lastly, the foundational principles for the show and further background about me are now contained at the end of the show for newer viewers and listeners, where regular viewers and listeners already know that stuff. So let's go with today's big idea. This is our last show for the year. The next show will be on 8 January because Christmas Day and New Year's Day fall on a Sunday, and that's when I record the show. And I think I'll take 2 weeks off and give you a rest as well. Christmas is a very important celebration, and I say the Christmas message is all about the power of love. Christmas is about the Christian message. It's about the Christian message of Christ being born. You don't have to believe in Christianity to be open to the possibility of Christ being born. Whether God sent him or not, that's your choice. But we celebrate Christ being born, and Australia and the Western world is founded on the basis of Christianity. The Christian message is also one of love your neighbours as you want to be loved. I say that living this way of love is much better than its opposite of living in fear. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. I say that governments around the world secretly, privately want you to live in fear. And I say governments in Australia and around the world are fear mongers. When you live in fear, you are controllable. Fear makes you weak. Fear kills your spirit. Fear squashes you mentally, physically, spiritually. It's like a huge burden on you. It's like being put into a vice and being squeezed by fear. You shrivel up when your life is consumed by fear. So how do governments do this fear-mongering? And I want to bring this to your attention so that when you're consciously aware of this, you are able to reject it. You are able to reject it by reminding yourself of the Christmas message of love, of what Christ's message was, of what Christianity's message is, that you as an individual matter. Not the state. Governments say to you that the state is what matters. But I say each one of you matters. I say Christianity says Each one of you matters. Would you give up your life for the good of the state? You think about that. I wouldn't. So here's the fear-mongering messages. Number one, the transgender message, the LBGTQI, FUK, whatever you like, any letter of the alphabet. This nonsense that a vast number of people are in the wrong bodies. This nonsense that's being taught to children under 18. There are transgender people coming to school allegedly to stop discrimination. Discrimination! And then it makes you fearful about your own way that you've been brought up. Hey, I thought there were men and women. And then you have government officials in this whole debate not being willing to define man and woman. I'll define man and woman for you. A woman has a vagina, a man has a penis. Pretty simple. And if you can't define man and woman, then what can you define? And then what happens in this whole transgender conversation is you become fearful about even opening your mouth because you have ceased to have any confidence in what you say. And so suddenly you go, I'm fearful of expressing a view. Number two of the government fear-mongering strategies is hate speech and offence speech. Okay, don't you dare say anything that might cause someone to be offended, that might be interpreted, oh, you hate that person. Be fearful. Don't say what you feel like saying. Number three, pandemics. Be worried, everybody. Be fearful. Pandemics. Listen to government. Sacrifice yourself for the good of the whole. Okay, not you. You don't matter. The whole matters. It doesn't matter that I, Charles, look after myself for 37 years of triathlons, of all the time being careful about what I eat, of not needing doctors because I'm healthy. No, I'm going to treat you the same as the guy who hasn't done an ounce of exercise in his whole bloody life. Treat me the same as that person. BS, I say. Number four, attack Christianity at all costs. Government stands up to protect all sorts of religions and belief systems, but never Christianity. That is a deliberate strategy, everybody, to kill the message of love, whilst pretending to care about you as people. Just contemplate that. Anyone who espouses Christian principles is demonized in the mainstream media and demonized by Western governments. Number five, governments attacking the family as the unit of society. Government says the state is what matters, and it attacks it in numerous ways. It attacks it by what's being taught in government schools, and it particularly attacks it by attacking the concept of mother and father. It also attacks it by not having family-friendly tax policies, to get very specific. You see, if you don't have a family, then who are you going to rely upon? The government wants you to rely upon the state. The government wants you to think the state is your family. I reject that suggestion. I urge you to be awake to the dismantling of the family as the unit, the building block of society. Number six, the alleged climate emergency. I say BS to that as well. I've been involved in renewable energy since 1992. I've been involved in organic farming since 1976. There is no climate emergency. And what's happening is the governments want you to be terrified about climate emergency and seas rising. And the facts are, when you look at the facts, that there is no emergency, but most people have no idea of the facts. They're just buying into the narrative, because if governments say there's the climate emergency, there must be a climate emergency. Governments are pushing up the price of power. They are making it unaffordable. And guess who's suffering most, the poor or the rich? Good guess. Number seven, The hypocrisy of government, that it says it cares about people and yet puts in place policies where people don't matter, only the state matters. Now, I haven't got time to go through all these elements of hypocrisy, but what hypocrisy does is, again, it makes you fearful about your own thinking. You say, I must be thinking incorrectly because the government says this, the government says that. And indeed, yesterday's Australian talked about Peter Dutton, the leader of the opposition here in Australia, saying, I'm worried about the evil being promulgated on, on social media, the evil being promulgated, and yet allowing outrageous impositions on human beings, including energy costs and including the outrageous situation of full-term abortions. What's worse, some social media words or allowing full-term abortions? Are you aware, and most people are not, that in many, many Western countries and most states of Australia, you can now have an abortion up to 40 weeks, up to full term? I say any abortion after 20 weeks, unless it's to save the life of the mother, is murder. It's no longer abortion. You see, what happens is the use of words gets smoothed by government, gets diluted, meanings are deliberately changed. It's not abortion after 20 weeks. I say that as a father of 5, and I say that as a lawyer, and calling it abortion lulls people into a false sense of security. So there's the hypocrisy, and hypocrisy makes you fearful. Governments practicing hypocrisy when you're not aware of it will make you fearful. And the last one is the cancel culture. The strategy of cancel culture is to stop you saying what you want, stop living life on your terms, to make you fearful that you will be cancelled. And government does this all the time. You won't get contracts with government if you don't comply with its requirements. And I say to you, the big legal and accounting firms comply with government woke principles, political correctness principles, other not anti-Christian principles, on the basis that they won't get contracts if they don't comply with governments, and particularly the Victorian government of Daniel Andrews. I say that Christ's message empowers you. The message of Christmas is to remind you of Christ's message, that love empowers you. I say that you matter. I say that your conscience matters. I say that your beliefs, the scientific fact about men and women, matter. And that you, when you come from love, caring about human beings, you won't be lulled into silence by the fact that man and woman, for example, can't be easily defined. Your values matter. What you think about life matters. How you want to raise your children matters. How you want to build your family matters. Do not be squashed by fear. Choose love. And every time you hear the word Christmas, I encourage you to think love, empowerment, truth, and freedom. Be free to speak your message of love. And I invite you to have a wonderful Christmas. I propose to. I constantly remind myself of the power of love. That's what passion is about. Passion comes from your soul, your spirit, your heart, and that's the same place that love comes from. So when you are living your life of passion, you are coming from a deep, powerful space, and you won't be driven by government fear-mongering. So, 6 resources, the song. Now, whilst I like all sorts of music, and I certainly am moved by beautiful love songs, and Evergreen, sung by Barbara Streisand, is a beautiful one at this time of year. You know, love soft as an easy chair, love fresh as the morning air, one love that is shared by 2, I have found with you. It's a beautiful, beautiful song about love. And I invite you to use it as an analogy for loving your neighbours, loving what the world can become, working to make this world a better place. And indeed, in yesterday's newspaper, again, there was a beautiful article, wonderful article by Bjorn Lomborg and Jordan Peterson. And Bjorn Lomborg is the head of the Copenhagen Consensus, and they have absolutely articulated the waste of money that is being spent on climate emergencies when there are so many better things to do. And if you are inspired by love and want the planet to improve, by the way, it has improved dramatically over the last 40 years, when in 1966, 50% of the world's population lived in constant malnutrition, and that number is down to 9%. We've gone from 50% to 9%. Massive improvement. And there's a beautiful quote here from this article. I urge you to get it. Instead of concentrating on what we could and should do with laser-like precision to improve the world, we demoralize our young people, carelessly portraying all expansive economic activity as intrinsically damaging to the planet, which it is not, and typifying their ambition as nothing but the latest manifestation of an endless pattern of universal oppression. You see, these oppression messages, nonsense. We can make this planet continue to improve to work for most people. That's what lies at the heart of my work and my admiration for Buckminster Fuller. So when you also listen to the lyrics of Evergreen and these messages of love and Christmas, think about your love for the planet. And if you are concerned about the planet, then read about Bjorn Lomborg, read about the Copenhagen Consensus, and how spending $400 billion in Germany in terms of getting rid of its nuclear capacity has reduced its greenhouse gas emissions from 79% to 77%. Like, it's just $400 billion. What could have been done with that? All in the name of a false climate emergency. My book this week, very interesting book by William Whitecloud called The Magician's Way. And what The Magician's Way will take you on is a journey to understanding what really matters, rather than being driven by the desire to get more money so that your life is better, so that you can feel secure, and then somehow magically that's going to transform your life. So William Whitecloud, The Magician's Way, and then that leads to today's quote. Here's a wonderful quote that will stop you searching for this illusion of security. It's a quote by John Paulos, American mathematician, born in 1945. He said, "Uncertainty is the only certainty there is, and knowing how to live with insecurity is the only security." Isn't that beautiful? Uncertainty is the only certainty there is, and knowing how to live with insecurity is the only security. Well, this show is designed to enable you to generate your own security by embracing this whole principle of uncertainty. And then when you embrace this principle, you won't be swayed by the fear-mongering of government. You can more readily embrace the Christmas message of love. My spiritual message, therefore, or the spiritual resource for you, or the spiritual tip, is to meditate on the basis on which you make your decisions. Broadly, are they driven by love or are they driven by fear? And that requires some deep, deep meditation to go, why am I choosing this? Why did I choose that in the past? Was it through love or through fear? My health tip. Now, this is a health tip to enable you to maintain reasonable health over the celebrations of Christmas and New Year. And that is to follow a ketogenic eating regime. So what that means is minimize your consumption at Christmas feasts of bread, of rice, of pasta, of potatoes. And the fifth one is the most fattening alcohols. You see, drink alcohol, but work out which one has the lowest carbohydrate, the lowest sugar levels. You see, you can have magnificent feasts of at Christmas of having ham and turkey and pork and beef and chicken. You don't have to have vast quantities of potatoes. You can have wonderful salads. And the point here is that you'll still be full, but you're eating ketogenic. And then what'll happen is that at the end of the celebrations, you won't have a huge task in getting back to your desired weight. Anyway, that's a little trick that you might contemplate, but might help you keep your weight down. And lastly, some humor. Some humor whilst I'm thoroughly enjoying and being passionate about my coffee. And indeed, love, you see, I love coffee. Julie loves coffee. So every time you drink coffee, there's another metaphor, there's another angle you could take, I love coffee. Who else do I love? Do I love my neighbor? So here's some thoughts on love. In a humorous way, a group of professional people posed this question to a group of 4 to 8-year-olds. What does love mean? Here they go. Love is when a girl puts on perfume and a boy puts on shaving cologne and they go out and smell each other. Love is when you go out to eat and give somebody most of your chips without making them give you any of theirs. Love is what makes you smile when you're tired. Love is when my mummy makes coffee for my daddy and she takes a sip before giving it to him to make sure the taste is okay. Love is when you kiss all the time. Then when you get tired of kissing, you still want to be together and you talk more. My mummy and daddy are like that. They look gross when they kiss. Love is what's in the room with you at Christmas if you stop opening presents and listen. Isn't that beautiful? If you want to learn to love better, you should start with a friend who you hate. Love is when you tell a guy you like his shirt and then he wears it every day. Love is like a little old woman and a little old man who are still friends even after they know each other so well. My mummy loves me more than anybody. You don't see anyone else kissing me to sleep at night. Love is when mummy gives daddy the best piece of chicken. Love is when mummy sees daddy smelly and sweaty and still says he's handsomer than Robert Redford. Love is when your puppy licks your face even after you left him alone all day. And last one. I know my older sister loves me, and this is very relevant to Julie. I know my older sister loves me because she gives me all her old clothes and has to go out and buy new ones. Dear, oh dear, I love it, I love it, I love it. So, I hope today's big idea is useful for you. This message is a bit longer than usual. However, I think it's an important one. I won't be with you for another 3 weeks, but I really do urge you to think about the power of Christmas. Visit our websites, covest.com, charlescovest.com. Subscribe to this show on YouTube or on podcast and share this show if you think it's of value with your family, with your friends, with your work colleagues. My books, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance, are available on those websites. Now, a quick review of key happenings in the week before we get to the foundational principles of the show and some background about me. Well, we're in the midst of the World Cup final, which will be on within the next 24 hours from when I'm recording this. And the value of the World Cup in particular for me is showing the amazing anticipation before a match and then the joy and sorrow for the supporters of the winning team and losing team, respectively. It's such an amazing build up, and then this amazing up and down. And isn't that what life is about? I think some of these team competitions are wonderful, metaphors for life. And the true value is being able to participate, not just the joy of winning. Clearly, you win it's a big deal, but gee, that's life is full of ups and downs. And when you embrace this, as the quote from John Paulos says, uncertainty is the only certainty. We're all uncertain. Who's going to win, France or Argentina, or in the playoff for third and fourth that apparently no one wants to be in, Croatia and Morocco. We're totally uncertain. No one can predict where the ball's going to go, what's going to happen. It's a beautiful metaphor for life. The Victorian election results came out. Daniel Andrews, worst premier in Victoria's history, in my view. We have two houses. We have a lower house and an upper house. And at least the Daniel Andrews government, which governs quite comfortably in the lower house, 55 seats out of 88, it doesn't have a sole majority in the upper house. So there's at least some limits on power. The reason why this shocking premier got re-elected is because the Liberal Party refuses to stand for something because it's internally conflicted. My prediction is that the Liberal Party will split into two parties of true liberals and then the woke, what I call the woke liberals or the teal liberals. Our society is suffering an epidemic of mental health issues. I think those mental health issues are very much related to the fear-mongering of government. I say when you come from fear, you have deeper mental health issues. I urge you to support the work of Mind Medicine Australia at mindmedicineaustralia.org.au because there are wonderful solutions to mental health problems, but governments don't allow them, and they are particularly psychoactive drugs such as cannabis, psilocybin, and MDMA. Mind Medicine Australia is doing great work to make these solutions available to people rather than having them on drugs that trap them for the rest of their lives with horrific adverse events attached to those drugs. Of course, it makes sense with the government response to the C word that there are so many people suffering mental health issues. And the reason why Daniel Andrews gets re-elected is because 60% of Victorians, 60% of Australians are having a great time over the last 3 years, particularly public servants, politicians, and big business that have all thrived at the expense of small to medium enterprises. Please be aware of those who have suffered deeply, who've lost their careers for standing up for their principles. And lastly, the big news is that the federal government in Australia, a Labor government, is effectively trying to socialise energy, gas production. And this is a shocking government imposition on free markets. It will end badly, trust me. I'm constantly amazed at the hypocrisy of governments. I've mentioned that it continues unabated. And each time I'm looking at the newspapers, I'm looking at how dare these guys say they're worried about this and at the same time do that. The hypocrisy is amazing. So it comes back to the message of what I leave you with is that I continue to look after my body, my health, my exercise, as does Julie. I urge you to. And I urge you not to be consumed by the fearful activities that are happening, but by the loving activities. And you can become a beacon of love in your neighbourhood by making your community contribution. Well, that's it. That's it for the last show for 2022. If you're new to the show, stick around for the foundational principles of the show and my background. Thank you for watching and listening this show and for all of our shows. I hope you have a great Christmas. I'll be back in 3 weeks' time. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time. And in the meantime, I urge you to contemplate your amazing human spirit of contemplating what you want your life to be about, of the principles by which you want to live your life. And this show is designed to help you have the resources to enable to live your life on your terms. Have a great Christmas. See you in 2023. Bye. And now, for viewers and listeners who want to know more about my background and what else I do with my life, as well as the foundational principles of the show, here we are. Since 1993, when I left my legal career, a career that I love, to become Australasia's passion provocateur, I have inspired and provoked and educated and motivated people all over the world to discover and pursue their passion. I have helped people via the books that I've written, via speeches at conferences, via in-depth team building programs, workshops over 1, 2 or 3 days, or over 3 months, 6 months. And I've coached people of all ages, one-on-one, from small, medium and large enterprises, government enterprises, helping them to identify the often tiny changes that can make a massive difference. One of my core principles is that freedom is what makes us truly human. That's why one of the greatest threats that government imposes on you to force you to observe its laws is the threat of imprisonment, the loss of your freedom. Just think about that. Government says, if you don't behave yourself, we're going to put you in jail. No, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to lose my freedom. That's a reminder to you of why freedom is so important. Without freedom, you and I are not much different to animals. If you were locked up in a cage for the rest of your life, how different would you be to an animal? This commitment to fighting for freedoms for all people is carried out by me primarily through 5 channels. Number 1, preserving the freedom to pursue your passion. Number 2, inspiring you to be able to be free through excellent health. Number 3, helping preserve freedom throughout the world through the expansion of industrial hemp, a magnificent agricultural crop, an almost miraculous crop that enables every community to thrive independently of government. In this way, the power of government to take away freedom is minimized. Number 4, fighting for freedom through legal strategies. So I do work as a legal strategy consultant, as an interface between clients and their lawyers. And number 5, as chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy and as a board member of the Australian Cartoon Museum, fighting for the freedom of thought and speech through uncensored comedy and humour, through avoiding political correctness in the comedic space. When you block freedom of speech, freedom of thought, that's the beginning of the end of your freedoms. The foundational principles for the Charles Covess Show are founded on the formula SA plus P equals S. Your self-awareness added to your passion will guarantee that you are successful. And the best definition of success I have found in life is that success is the progressive realization of your worthy ideals. The progressive realization of your worthy ideals. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous principle and quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." You can see I'm wearing my red jacket. I wear my red jacket for all my shows. Red is the color of passion, so that when you see me on the YouTube version, it reminds you that when you see red in your life, you ask yourself the question, am I pursuing my passion? What am I passionate about? Am I still passionate about that? What might I newly be passionate about? Each week I explore one big idea that can change your life. And it's just one big idea because there's a chance you will remember it. If I give you too many ideas, then we get confused and we don't do anything. Clarity leads to power. Confusion kills passion. Each week I share simple and practical resources that you've heard me describe in the earlier part of the show. A spiritual tip, a health tip, lyrics of a song, a book, a quote, and of course humour. This show is not politically correct. I have no intention of being politically correct. And I love certain addictions, including my addiction to great coffee, my addiction to exercise, my addiction to reading, and my addiction to certain other unmentionable in public type behaviours. Who would know what they are? This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. So if you don't like discussion of spirituality, this show is not for you. I promise you that I don't include anything in this show that I don't consider to be true and that I have not found to be useful in the work that I've done over the past 28 years, but also over the past 50 years in business, as a lawyer, as a consultant advisor. I only want to share stuff with you that is of value to you. Finally, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to contact me at charles@covest.com. Again, thanks for watching and listening to my show. Bye.